You know, in today's digital world with virtual analog gear literally at our fingertips, is it even necessary to own an analog console anymore? Or a digital console for that matter? In this video, I want to discuss some of the pros and the cons of using a console in your production. Maybe answer the question once and for all, do you need a console? Let's get started. I grew up working on analog consoles. I mean, it's all that there was. There was Neve and SSL and Trident and MkII, heck, a MkII even, just to name a few. The list of options was long, and that's just in the recording world, not to mention the live audio console market. Now, obviously, some sounded better than others, and some had way more features than others, but they all had one important thing in common: faders and knobs. I mean, the ability to quickly navigate around the console helped you bring mixes together extremely fast. A knob for every pan, EQ, gain, aux send, you name it. You could move quick, and you didn't need to select a channel and then tweak it. You could just reach out and grab a knob or a fader and make a change instantly. I mean, you could reach out and turn up multiple knobs at the same time or push up multiple faders at the same time. It was awesome. It is awesome. So does all this mean that it's 100% better option to go with a console? Well, let's do kind of a pros and cons look into the advantages and disadvantages of using a console, and then hopefully you can make an informed decision on whether or not you need one. But just real quick, before we dive into the list, did you know that you could hire me to mix your project? You know, I was talking to a friend the other day and he didn't even realize I was available to do that. Look, I can get busy, but I'm always on the lookout for new collaborations. Making music is what I love. It's what this whole thing is all about. For more information about that, about me, just go to SidotiSound.com and you can learn a whole bunch more. Of course, you can always find me on, most of the social media channels. Just look up Sidoti Sound, and as usual, there are always links in the description below to get you to all those places. So make sure to check that out. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's dive into the pros and cons. All right, pro number one, I actually already mentioned it, and it's multiple faders and knobs. So I won't go into any detail really more than I already did because I already covered it. But for the sake of this list, that's number one. Pro number two would be insert points, direct outs, connecting gear to and from your console. That, if you want to use outboard gear, you need to plug it in. So that's pretty self-explanatory where a console has all of that I/O option for you. Okay, pro number three is this. Everything is where you left it last. In a way, you always have a template, at least in the last state that it was saved. But you can always start from that point. Pro number four is mic pre's. Look, if you have a 16 or a 24 or a 96 channel console, typically you have that many mic pre's. And, it's usually one of, if not the main reason why you would choose a specific brand or model of a console. Having nice mic pre's is essential to capturing great audio. All right, pro number five is being able to put a headphone mix together for the artist very quickly. I'm not talking about just sending them what you're hearing and boom, there you go, they have it. No, I'm talking about giving them specific things, little details that help them give you a better performance. So, some consoles have a B section where they literally have a playback fader section where you can give them a mix there. And if not, then obviously aux sends where you can dial in a custom headphone mix for them very quickly. And I promise they're going to give you a better performance when they have a better mix. All right, so obviously there's more pros than that, but for the sake of the shortness of this video, let's leave it there. Now let's talk about the cons. All right, con number one is a console can take up a lot of space. Sometimes that space is precious and you need as much of it as you can get, especially if you're in a bedroom or a home studio. And also, it can generate so much heat because of its size. And when you're in a small space, man, you're out of room and you're getting hot. All right, con number 2, if you don't work with large bands or groups, then you don't need that many channels. Because maybe you're recording 1 or 2 things at a time and it's just completely mixed in the box. So you don't need something to take up all that space and have all those channels if you're not recording multiple things at one time. All right, con number 3 is everything is where you left it, which was the pro number 3. But this can be a nightmare when you're jumping back and forth from session to session. It's really difficult to recall things. Now, back in the day, this is just the way it was. Unless you had flying faders and automation, then you just had to recall things by writing it down on track sheets or by even taking a picture of your console just to be able to recall things. Either way, it wasn't quick. Okay, con number 4 is maintenance. All those electronics and moving parts, they have a lifespan. And engineers who specialize in fixing analog consoles are exceedingly rare. Okay, con number 5 is a console can be cost prohibitive. You can go from a few $1,000s to a few $100,000. Depending on the quality of MkII and routing options, it can get crazy expensive. So just to throw it in there as another option, let's talk about digital consoles. Digital consoles can have a whole lot of bang for the buck, but the biggest factor is I/O, inputs and outputs. Now you can get a 16 to a 32 channel console relatively expensive. I'd say anywhere from $1,500 up to $5,000. But once you start going above 32 channels, 32 MkIIIs, the dollar signs start climbing quick. Now there's a few digital consoles out there that really pay attention to the typical recording workflow, but most of them don't. Most of them really are more focused on the live sound workflow, and that can be an issue. Now, just about all digital consoles have one extremely important feature, and that is that it is a total recall console. Not to mention that it also has built-in effects. Being able to jump around from scene to scene is huge. You can store everything, mic pre's, aux sends, effects, EQ, compressors, and recall it with a push of a button. And monitoring through the console at near zero latency with effects, it's simple. You don't even need to, print the effects or use them later. But at near zero latency, it's a huge win. Now, I say near zero because they do have a signal path and processing. It's got to go from A to D, get processed, and then D to A, back out, unless you're using, digital outs like AES or Dante or MADI or something like that. So I think to ultimately answer the question of do you need a console comes down to 2 basic factors. 1, do you need a large amount of mic pre's because you're recording lots of inputs at one time? Well, then maybe you do. And the second question is, do faders and knobs make or break your workflow? Now, for faders and knobs, there's obviously options like control surfaces that might suit your needs. That's where I've landed for this current mix setup that I have. I use 2 control surfaces and the Softube. So I've got a knob for EQ and gain and compression, and I've got 16 faders with mutes and pans and that's working for me. Heck, you could even do a Slate Raven if you want. We've got stuff like that. Now, that didn't work for me. If that floats your boat, then I think you should check it out. I tried it, but it was like not being able to get that tactile feedback back from the fader or the knob was kind of a deal breaker for me. So, if you're on the fence about whether or not you should be using a console in your workflow, I hope that this video at least sheds some light on the subject for you. Let me know in the comments if I left out a pro or a con that you think I should have added. I'd love to get your feedback. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. So I'll see you on the next video.